Alright, what's going on, guys? With the game as big as Elden Ring, this is going to be one of those experiences where we spend a long time, I'm talking years, finding and deciphering all the little secrets hidden throughout, especially with it being From Software's first grab at an open world. And we all know From Software is notorious about that kind of thing. Now, you guys really liked my last video breaking down a lot of the new community discoveries we found, so today we're going to tackle this from a different angle and take a look at all of the known Easter eggs currently in Elden Ring. Now, some of these range from very simple nods to other media, all the way to the very foundation of the game, being based on ancient literature. So let's go ahead and dive into one that you probably all noticed. Tucked away in the east of Liurnia is one of the first and most obvious nods to other media found in Elden Ring. If the player ventures to the east of Raya Lucaria, they'll likely come across the Frenzy Flaming Tower. However, they may or may not actually make it to the tower itself, because residing at the top is an eye of fire that when gazing at the player inflicts madness. In order to reach the tower, the player needs to hide behind the many rocks and trees of the area to avoid its gaze. But it gives you plenty of time to notice the stark resemblance to the Eye of Sauron from Lord of the Rings. But Elden Ring takes no shame in admitting much of its inspiration came from the Lord of the Rings series. In addition to the Eye of Sauron, many of you guys know that Elden Ring's Knights Cavalry take their inspiration from the ring wraiths of Lord of the Rings, so much so that their internal file name are Nazguls. With fantasy author George R.R. Martin working first-hand on the game, there of course had to be a homage to his primary work, A Song of Ice and Fire, and such homage can be found very early on in the game. If the player chooses to go to the southernmost point of the map and explore the Weeping Peninsula, they're guaranteed to want to explore Castle Morn. It's a fun early game dungeon to clear out, but after beating the area's boss, the player will be rewarded the Grafted Greatsword, a blatant nod to the iconic Iron Throne of Game of Thrones. So it's cool to see them honor Martin's work like this. But when it comes to inspiration behind the Souls genre in Elden Ring, no roots go deeper than those into Kentaro Miura's Berserk. And you know, if you've played any amount of the Souls games, just how similar Dark Souls is to Berserk and how much inspiration it draws from the manga, to the point where some people even joke that Dark Souls is the best Berserk game we'll ever get. So it reasons that Elden Ring will follow the same trend. And it does. Elden Ring has a lot of Berserk references. For example, Malenia's helm is almost identical to Farnes's. General Radahn is clearly based on Grunbeld, or Zod, or even other characters in Berserk for that matter. The Erd Tree itself looks to be a play on Ganeshka's Spirit Tree. But a common theme throughout all the Dark Souls games is homage to Guts' Greatsword. And of course, Elden Ring had to throw it in. It looks like a mix between the Dragon Slayer and the Golden Age sword, but the reference is undeniable. However, with the unfortunate passing of Kentaro Miura, the author of Berserk, fans wondered if there was going to be a tribute paid to his legacy. And while it's not blatantly stated, the mass sword graves around the open world seem to be just that, reflecting one of the most iconic moments of the series. But in a more lighthearted tone, did you know there's a Frozen reference in Elden Ring? Out of all the pieces of media I figured they'd draw from in a game like this, Frozen probably finds itself at the bottom of that list. But given how popular it was in Japan, and taking into consideration how long this game's been in development, we can kind of see why they might have wanted to sneak this in. But I don't even have to tell y'all what the reference is, just read the description of Blythe's armor. I'm sure you'll find it. One of the many interesting characters that players will come across in Elden Ring is D, Hunter of the Dead, who seeks to hunt down those who live in death and shouldn't be alive. But did you know he's a clear nod to the vampire hunter D? And the two characters share quite a bit of similarities. While they don't visually look similar, both share an equal mission of hunting down supernatural things that should not be. But the interesting connection here is that the vampire hunter has a symbiotic partner who resides in his left hand with his own mind and will. D in Elden Ring wears a set of armor that houses the soul of him and his twin brother. And I'd put money on the fact that if we explore the lore of both these characters deeper, then we could find some really awesome connections. But maybe that's a video for another time. One of the late game boss weapons you can get in Elden Ring may be paying homage to a popular Metroidvania that, funnily enough, draws the majority of its inspiration from the Souls games. And a lot of you guys may have played it. The game is called Blasphemous, which brings us to the weapon we're going to be talking about, the Blasphemous blade. However, this Easter egg does raise some questions, because the team that developed Blasphemous, while they were very excited to see this, hesitate to admit that it's a direct reference. While an argument can be made that the blades share some similarities, the blade in the game Blasphemous was originally designed based off the Blade of Thorns from Dark Souls. So it's really uncertain if it's just a coincidence here, but people have also pointed out that the Briar set seems to also have similarities, so perhaps it was intentional. One of the more cryptic references throughout Elden Ring is its constant foundation on hermetic alchemy, particularly the Ripley Scroll. If you don't know what the Ripley Scroll is, it's a metaphorical depiction of the process to create the Philosopher's Stone, the mechanism by which to turn base metals like lead into gold. And the Ripley Scroll shows the chemical process through various imagery. However, there's one panel I want to take a look at for today's purpose, and that is the depiction of the royal court, because the setting of Elden Ring is based on this exact image here, and you may be able to see it right away. But take a look at this map of the Divine Towers, centered around the Erd Tree, and then compare it to this frame in the Ripley Scroll, and I think you can start to see where the inspiration is drawn from. These Divine Towers form the shape around the sea, with the Tree of Life at its center, and Elden Ring being the Erd Tree. We have the White Queen Marika and the Red King Radagon, and 7 royal family members representing the 7 elements, which in Elden Ring are the 7 great runes we activate at the top of the Divine Towers. But Elden Ring's inspiration from hermetic alchemy goes far deeper than I can explain here today. So if that was at all interesting to you, I highly encourage you to check out my other video, where we go extremely in depth about it, and I'll have that linked up at the top. But these are just a few of the currently discovered Easter eggs that I know we're going to find more of as time goes on. Elden Ring is simply too big of a game to not have a lot more out there, and I'm sure there's even more that I hadn't found out about yet, so if you know of some that weren't in this video, definitely leave those down in the comments below. But that's going to pretty much do it for the video. I hope you enjoyed. If you did, please leave a like on it, and subscribe if you're new around here, and I'll catch you in the next one.